Welcome to the Stature Icon Podcast, where we help you find the courage to stand tall and shine bright. I'm your host, Jalal Wilson, and I believe that each and every one of you is a stature icon. In each episode, we'll explore challenges we face on our journey to self-discovery and personal growth. We'll discuss strategies to overcome obstacles, build confidence, and unlock your true potential. Whether you're seeking motivation, inspiration, or practical advice, the Stature Icon Podcast is here to support you every step of the way. So if you're ready to break through perceived limitations, embrace your inner icon, and make a positive impact on the world, you've come to the right place. Let's stand tall together and shine bright. Yesterday, my son came home. He was all excited, and he comes in the room, and he's like, man, I got all these books from my school today. I was like, oh, okay, cool. He said, yeah, I'm about to start a business. I'm like, yeah, okay. You know me. I'm loving that. I'm like, yeah, you want to start a business? All right, let's go. Stature Icon. No, but I was just playing. But he's like, I want to start a business. And so I'm like, okay, cool. He ends up taking out the books. He says, I'm going to sell the books. I'm like, wait, you got these books for free and you going to come home and sell them? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, what kind of books you got? And so he pulls out all the books, and I'm looking at these books, and I'm like, I don't know about this. But then I see one that catches my eye. So I grabbed the book, and it's Helen Keller's book. I guess it's the Scholastic Biography of Helen Keller by Margaret Davidson. The funny thing is my parents were in town from Seattle the day before, and we went to the library because my mom wanted to see the huge library that we have in Columbia, South Carolina. So I took her down there, walked her around, and she said to me something that was very interesting. She said a lot of what she learned about our history, especially our history as African Americans, she learned from children's books. She said because they were easy to read, she was able to digest the information a little bit better. And so I was like, okay. I honestly probably would not have picked up an autobiography of Helen Keller, even though I've heard so many amazing things about her. But I saw the Helen Keller book. I thought of what my mom said the day before, and I told him I'd buy it. And I bought the book from him. And I'm sorry, I'm working on these ands. I bought this book, and I also bought The Little Prince. I already have a copy of The Little Prince, but next time I see someone that I think needs a new book or a book they would enjoy, I'm going to give them a copy of The Little Prince. So we get down to talking business. I'm like, how much for these books? He's like, $3 for both of them. I said, absolutely not, man. How about $2? And he said, okay, I can do that. So I purchased my book, and I read Helen Keller's book yesterday in one day. It was 91 pages. But it was 91 pages. But I couldn't put the book down. And it got me thinking. How, if we think about this, Helen Keller went blind. She was when she was born, her parents said she was a happy kid. And then one day she got sick. She was like almost 8 months, and she had got sick. And when she got sick, she was not feeling well and all that stuff. But then her mom noticed, okay, when she started feeling better, she went in her room one day, and Helen didn't respond to her when she went in front of her face. And then she figured it out real quickly that her daughter was blind. And she's like, oh, my gosh. So she went and tells her husband. And then the next day, she comes in, and she's like, Helen, breakfast time. And then Helen doesn't respond. So she's like, And then she goes up to her, sleeping area, and she makes all this noise by her, and Helen doesn't respond. And she was like, she's deaf. And so they took her to all these doctors, and there's nothing we can do. She's blind and deaf. Now just imagine you having a child that is healthy, happy, and all of a sudden they get sick and end up blind or deaf. it's got to be like, I couldn't even imagine what, her and her father went through. I mean, what Helen's mom and dad went through, because that had to be devastating. And it was interesting. So Helen goes through, she's causing a ruckus. She's trying to figure things out. She's a young kid. She's trying to figure things out. And eventually, I'll skip the whole story. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but they was going to put her in an institution because they just couldn't keep her out of stuff. And she was having attitude. She was trying to destroy stuff. They was like, we need to get rid of this kid. But instead, they heard about this institute. They found the teacher from it, and the teacher helps Helen. Now, here's the thing. Here's why this is important for us, because you're like, oh, so what? But here's the thing. Here's why this is important for us. Because as we are on our journey to stand tall and shine bright, what stops us from doing that a lot of times is focusing on our limitations. Now, Helen Keller went on to graduate from college. She went on to fly planes. She went on to boating. She learned to swim. She did all these things, deaf and blind. And she went on tour, teaching, going to schools, giving speeches, and all this stuff. Now, she did all of this deaf and blind. Now, most of us, a lot of us, that is not our situation right now. We are not deaf or blind. But yet, we still are not doing what it takes to move past our perceived limitations. Here is somebody who had no ability to speak, couldn't hear, could not see. Oh, I forgot about all the books she wrote. She wrote books. Like, we have our faculties. We have our ability to hear, ability to see, our ability to pick up a pen and write if we want to. But she had to learn how to do all of that stuff, right? And she never once told herself, I'm sure she did at the beginning at some point. But once she started learning, there's a chapter where she figures out all the hands, where she hasn't put together that the hand motions that her teacher is doing in her hand are actually words and they mean something. But once she was able to figure that out, she became a voracious reader and learner. She wanted to learn everything. She didn't let that be an excuse for why she couldn't do whatever it is she wanted to do. She figured out a way to get it done. And here we are, we're walking around with our perceived limitations and telling ourselves what we can and can't do. And we're worried about what people might say and think about us if we do that thing or become that icon that we know we can be. We worry about that stuff. But next time we start to worry about that, we got to think about Helen Keller. We got to think about this woman who started off life as a baby, happy as a mug, run around, can see, can hear, all of that. And then, boom, in an instant, it was taken away from her. And yes, she was frustrated at the beginning, but she channeled that frustration. She had a teacher that helped her channel that frustration. And once she was able to channel it, she became the best version of herself. And she never perceived it as a limitation going forward. Now, what was interesting about her doing that was one of the things that was a turning point in her experience was the teacher had to get her away from her family, because what she noticed, and her teacher's name is Annie Sullivan, what she noticed was that as long as she kept her around her family, they would enable her to do things that were not in her best interest, because they just didn't want her to be upset. So what Annie quickly realized is, to get her to be the best version of herself, I have to separate her from what's comfortable to her. Let me say that again, just in case you missed it. To get to the best version of herself, she realized that she had to separate her from her family to get the greatness out of her. And that is powerful when we think about that. Because sometimes we're so comfortable. We are so comfortable with this or with that going on that we allow ourselves to let that comfort be the reason that we stay stuck. We stay stuck in our comfort zone because why? In our comfort zone, we're comfortable. And it's comfortable to talk about and be stuck by your perceived limitation. It's comfortable to do that. It's easy to do that. It feels good. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes when I feel stuck in a place, sometimes that stuckness, it feels comfortable because it's predictable. I know what it is. I know how it feels. I know how to maneuver in that space. But that is a trap. And Annie saw that to get Helen Keller out of this trap, she had to separate her from that environment and put her in an environment where it was forcing her to change, adapt, and grow. And because of that, we now have all these things that we were able to, Helen Keller was able to become the best version of herself because of it. And she was able to do things like go to college, write books, ride in planes, just all types of stuff. It's just, but none of that could have happened if she had not gotten out of the wrong environment. So right now, I want you to think, what are the areas of your life that you are allowing yourself to be comfortable in that are, helping you feel good about encouraging those perceived limitations that you have? And what do you need to do to put yourself in a position to grow? And sometimes that's just, hanging out. Maybe you don't know, you don't have time to think for yourself or think, just life is busy. Maybe just taking time out. Start off with a 5-minute walk and just think. Check in with yourself. How am I doing today? What do I need? What would make my day great? Just check in with yourself. Everything doesn't have to be this grand thing that we do all the time. Sometimes it's just simple things. And when I tell you this, I'm talking to myself too, because sometimes I get caught up, like I said, in my own limitations, believing that I can't do this or I can't do that, or it's not going to be perceived well. And we just get stuck. We're really just stuck there. And I'm going to leave you. I read this article today from Sahil Bloom. You can find him, Sahil Bloom, on Twitter, or sign up for his newsletter. And he had this newsletter today. It says, your entire life will change the moment you. And then it lists some things. And I found a few of these that I thought were very interesting. And one of them is, and this one hit home, like punched me in the stomach. It says, stop expecting immediate results and start embracing delayed gratification. The delayed gratification is the key to the life of your dreams. Because sometimes we want stuff now. So we try to take shortcuts. We try to do, we try to copy somebody else's flow, movement, and then get frustrated when it doesn't happen to us instantly and it feels like this thing isn't for us. But no, we have to stop expecting it to be overnight and start putting in the work to, allow it to marinate and give it a chance to grow. Another one that hit me was stop complaining about things you can't control and start taking ownership over the things you can. Now, there are a lot of things that will happen to you that you do not control. And instead of complaining about those things, focus on what you can control. There's a lot more in your control than there is out of your control. I know that sounds crazy to say, but there is. And, he points out that complaining is just really wasted energy that you can be using to try to figure out a solution. So I'm with him on that one. And this is something, like I said, all these I think are things that I have to keep in mind too. And this one means it is big. Stop focusing on being impressive to others and start focusing on being impressive to yourself. When you are so focused on how your perceived limitation will look to someone else, you don't even take a look at your perceived limitation and see if it's a real limitation, because you're worried about how other people are going to view it instead of how you view you. And that's why on this Stature Icon podcast, we're going to help you stand tall and shine bright, because you are the light, and the light comes from you. So you don't need to look externally for the light that you already are, but you cannot discover the light within yourself until you look inward, baby. All right. So I just want you guys to think about this. And next time you think about your limitations, you should remember Helen Keller and all that she overcame and all the things that she was able to do. And she had this quote in this book: "It's life is an adventure or it's nothing. Make your life an adventure. Go on the journey. Shed them limitations. You got this. I believe in you." And it is our mission, our goal is we're going to stand tall together and shine bright. That's all for this episode of the Stature Icon Podcast. Remember, you have the power within you to break through perceived limitations and shine bright. Embrace your inner icon and never stop reaching for your dreams. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us reach more listeners and inspire more people to stand tall. For more resources, tips, and inspiration, follow us on social media. That's Stature Icon on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Until next time, this is Jalal Wilson reminding you to keep standing tall and shining bright. See you in the next episode.